for a trap!
Yes, she's got it all. She's everything you've ever wanted in a movie. A woman and a casserole.
She was walking next to me, singing.
You'll see lots of weird romance.
What's that perfume you're wearing?
All right, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Her first feature film. Look at that. Okay, so my history with Elvira was, I remember playing, it was Call of Duty Infinite Warfare and the Zombies mode, which I'm just going to say this right now. The Infinite Warfare Zombies mode is actually my favorite because you're going to different decades. So I actually liked that one. I don't really understand why people didn't, but that's just me. But it was the 50s one, and she was there. And it was like, okay, I don't know who this is. And also watching a lot of Halloween Wars, because Halloween Wars was awesome. She was a guest judge on a couple of episodes. So I'm like, okay, I'm seeing you pop up a little bit. So let me look and see, one, who you are, and two, what do you have to do with horror? And that's when I found out she hosted a show, I think it was Movie Macabre show, where she would show these horror movies that may not be well known to the public. Sometimes they were kind of schlocky and kind of bad, but that was her show. And looking at the history, they wanted to do a film. I think they said they were trying to do it for a while. But the problem is that they had something going on with NBC, and they were trying to make like a movie deal with them. But eventually, when deals were starting to be talked about, they opted out. So then they're just like, all right, well, let's almost self-fund this thing. And originally they wanted Cassandra Peterson wanted Tim Burton to direct this, because she had a small part in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and she thought that he was the perfect choice. But I think at the time he was busy doing Beetlejuice at the time. And then immediately after that, he was working on Batman. So he was quite busy. So then the director we have, I believe, I think it was an episode of a show, and she was impressed. So he signed on. They ended up getting a script together, and now we have the movie. So this movie is about Elvira. She's hosting her show, but she's like, you know what? I want to be a showgirl in Las Vegas. That's her dream. So she ends up finding out that one of her members of her family inherited some money, or inherited something, and she's hoping it's like a brand new car. She's hoping it's like a wad of cash, but she gets there and she's given this book, and she looks at it like, what is this? Like, is this worth anything? But then another member ends up wanting it for reasons she doesn't know. But so for the movie, this person tries to get this book that we end up finding out is a lot more powerful than they thought. But it's quite funny to this is very much a fish out of water type story, because she goes to a town where it's kind of almost like bright and sunny, no problems anywhere, and then yet it's like okay. And I'll say this right off the bat: if you aren't a fan of the humor of Elvira, which is sometimes it's only in the dialogue, and sometimes the dialogue is actually really funny and clever, but there's a lot of sexual jokes, mainly on her breasts. But like I said, if you're not into that kind of humor, then you're probably not going to like this. But I watched this movie. The first time I saw this, I'd heard about it for a little bit, but one day I was really sick, and which is weird because personally I don't really get sick. But I was going like, you know what? I'm just going to sit and watch some movies. So there I was laying in bed, and I turned on my TV. I turned on to Amazon Prime, and I saw it there. And I'm like, you know what? I'll sit down and I'll watch this. And so I watched it with, I think I had orange juice, and I forget, I had something else, but I was sitting there and I was laughing, but at the same time it was a bit hard to laugh because I was sick. But besides the point, that was the first time I watched this, and I was like, you know what, this is a pretty entertaining movie. So, and it has quite a bit of people in it too. Like, kind of one of the main villains of this is, I forget her name, but she's Grace in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I love that movie, even though it's pretty much impossible for for Ferris to do all of that in one day, but that's besides the point. Another villain is I forget his name, but he was the mayor's assistant in Ghostbusters 2. They almost like replacement Peck. And I'm just like, okay, you're not Peck, but yeah, you bad. But so there's quite a bit of people in this movie, and when I was little and I saw both Ghostbusters 2 and Ferris Bueller's Day Off when I was a young kid, and then they popped up, I was going like, oh, no way. So yeah, that added a little extra appreciation for the movie. Some of the jokes they do is a bit like, wow, that's just outrageous. I mean, there's a part where there's like a town picnic almost, and in order to kind of seen as like, yeah, I'm not bad, Elvira makes this like casserole, but she uses the book she inherited almost like as a cookbook. So she ends up putting a spell into it, and then gives it, and then looks from afar, and then people start eating it, but they're like, oh my god, this is so good. But then the spell was actually, it wasn't it being really good. The spell was all of them start having sex with each other. And it's so outrageous, and it's just like, okay, I guess we're doing this. I guess this is what's happening. So you're going along for the ride, because there's moments where you're like, okay, I guess this is what's going on, but we're moving on. So there's a lot of that in this movie. And like I said, if you're not a fan of like sexual humor, you're probably not gonna like this movie, because that is a big chunk of the humor. And it just, it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I remember researching that this movie wasn't very received well when it first came out, because it was just like, it's kind of a one-trick pony kind of movie. And yeah, I guess you could see it like that, but ultimately, it's a fun movie. It definitely opened the door to me noticing Elvira more and me knowing more about her. And I was like, okay, so this is what she's done. So I have fun with this movie. It's, like I said, it's a fun movie. And it's PG-13, but there's parts in this movie that I'm like, yeah, I don't think this would slide today. So it was, but this came out like right when PG-13 was first issued. So they were still kind of trying to find the balance between PG and R. But, it's, there's parts in this movie where I'm like, yep, I don't think that would slide. But who knows? It was the 80s. So I personally give this movie a grade. It's a fun movie. It's not for everyone, and I understand. But me personally, it's just a fun movie.
Loads of drooling madness.
Ew, I hope you changed the sheets.
Hey, Elvira, we got us a couple more volunteers.
Great! Just grab a tool and start banging.
A whole gang of awesome monsters.
I'm bad, Jamal, you know it.
And a few sleazy experiments.
And there's nothing wrong with G-rated movies as long as there's lots of sex and violence.
The charge is witchcraft.